When it comes to the free will argument, I think a few things can be true at once. I think there are primitive folks that exist because of the mindset that they're in and the reality in which they've accepted are primitive beings, okay, which means they're maybe on level with animals. And we know this because we see this in everyday life. You see it on TikTok or wherever. People are just operating on the lowest vibration, lowest level, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially, all kinds of levels. But then there's the free will that, which I do believe that lower primitive person probably is operating on some biological, I have a drive, I'm hungry, I want this, I want that, therefore I feed my drive or my hunger, whatever that is. That's primitive. But then there's this other level, and I think this is a reality existing all at the same time. And there are people who are in that free will zone, which means you're kind of going every day, you freely decide what you're going to do. I honestly don't really understand what the debate is for free will because I think I'm a little too indoctrinated in believing that there is free will. Like it does exist. And I don't know why one thing has to be true. Therefore, all things have to be true for everybody. And this free will thing doesn't exist anywhere in this realm type of debate. I guess I don't understand that. I don't understand where they're coming from. I'm just going to come from the level I understand. I don't get it. And I know it has to do with my history of Christianity. But I do think we can choose from a place of knowing the difference between right and wrong, and every day getting up to being inspired by something emotionally, mentally, however, whether it's love, whether it's money, whether it's fame, or whatever you're trying to, whatever drives you that is not biologically like a hunger, tummy based, lower than tummy based type vibes. But then there's this other thing that exists, and that's the spiritual side of this. I don't know if you call that spiritual free will or spiritual realm or reality or consciousness. I don't know what you'd call it. But it's people who are given dominion over the animal. And that means that first, just like with Little Red Riding Hood, the beast is a man. You know, this wolf, oh, how big your eyes are, how, long your nose is. This type of thing is all reference to, a phallic reference. I mean, Little Red Riding Hood is deep. It's real deep. And basically, the difference between the hunter and the wolf, this wolf that's walking around talking, is clearly not a wolf. It's, even though I know it's supposed to be folklore and all that, that's a man who has given in to his primitive side. He is hungry, therefore he eats, And then you have this other man who is the hunter, who his job is to protect and to chase down the wolf and to secure and protect and to, create a safe place for something healthy to grow. But the first wolf that hunter chased, was within himself. He had to have dominion over this beast within him first before he could chase down anything outside of himself. And I know this to be a fact for a lot of reasons, because this spiritual reality is so real. I should never survived my birth or my kid's birth. I have young people in my family who've passed away who were healthier than me. I shouldn't be here. I've lived double their life and I shouldn't be here. And I know this is all due to Jesus Christ. And just as Apostle Paul said, I am a prisoner to Christ. And so, some groups of people have oppression from the world. We get it from a God who says, guess what? Your job is to be here against your will and to do things that are going to test whatever control that the most primitive side of your free will kind of dips into every so often, and to practice using the Holy Spirit to guide you, and then the other side of you that absolutely is primitive, because it's a thing, like we're in a body that does get hungry, and sometimes your emotions make you hungry and it's not your stomach, and it's complicated. So my thing is this: if I'm here against my will and I do what I'm supposed to do every day, even against what I really want, I don't understand, even, like, I'm not talking about Alex per se, but I'm saying, like, that table that he's rearranging this reality on doesn't even have legs, because according to him, There's no reason to be here. So why sit at tables and argue? And the thing is, people who have the same mindset, like Alex, have no problem with the guy who's born a pyro, whose job it is to biologically run around and set things on fire. The guy who's born, who's a psychopath or a sociopath, runs around, kills people, and doesn't feel a thing. Well, I mean, that's their biology. He's cool with the chaos, which is really weird because it doesn't, for somebody who's very logical, it doesn't really make sense. But a whole lot of what he's doing doesn't make sense. It's like if you really don't believe there's a reality that matters, if you're just a pile of meat in a flesh sack, why would you waste your time sitting at tables when instead of feeding your urges? And is it feeding something within him? Is it an ego thing? I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about people who do this. I'm talking about a principality situation. Is it an ego thing, or is it a test? It's other conscious beings saying, hey, I know you caught me being primitive, but you're primitive too. And you have the side of you that's like this too, and always testing the waters and always pushing against the wall, because people who believe in God have a being that is not just checking what they're doing like your boss checks what you do physically, but a being that's saying, but are you doing that in the right spirit? Are you doing it with the right intentions? That's what God's always doing. He's checking you. He's saying, but look at your face while you're doing that. Are you doing that? What are you doing that for? And if you are answering to a God like that, you can't really comfortably sit in a world that's chaotic. So you have to answer to God for that and say, okay, God, within my world, I killed the beast within me first. Well, Jesus did, I should say. He taught us how to do that. And then now I'm going to push outside, just like the Maslow hierarchy of needs, push a bit outward. And now if they're my family, I'm going to try to address really serious issues and try to take control of that within your control, like make your bed type stuff. And then you can push outside of that if you're strong enough. Believe me, I don't think I am. I just come on YouTube and do the best I can out here in these streets. And it's only because I'm trying to show God through consistent behavior that I not only do I know he's real and believe he's real, but I want somehow to be one little tiny piece of that wall that's adding resistance to a world and saying, here is proof. I can give my testimony. I can give, my own experiences. I can't tell you how to live or how to exist or how to be. I can look at you and kind of wonder a few things, because when I was an atheist, I definitely was going to argue about fairies, or why would you go and just feed your urge? What do you care what anybody else thinks? But it might be something else. Maybe it's about looking at the wall and saying, well, maybe it's looking at the people who are the wall, the people who are standing there who are the resistance, and going, what drives you? That being up there isn't real. Is that it? I don't understand. But it does kind of feel like there's a possibility, this is what I'm thinking, is that if you're comfortable with the chaos in the world, if the chaos is comfortable to you, and other beings are looking around and going, no, this isn't right, maybe you need to fight that resistance. You need to fight the Christians or the Jews or whoever, Jewish people, because they're stopping you from not feeling guilty. Because you can't be like a cat or a dog and just do stuff and not feel guilty about it because you're on a higher level than a cat or a dog. So you don't want a Jiminy Cricket walking around reminding you that you're doing something wrong. Who wants that? Maybe that's why they're that way. I don't understand. I'm not judging their person. I'm just simply saying, I'm looking at them going, I'm here against my will, and I have free will, and I know I do. I know I have primitive parts of me, but I think all these things exist at once, and I'm fighting them all the freaking time in Christ. What makes you tick? What? Why would you spend your time in a world as mad and as crazy and as evil as this is, and as wicked as it is, not just going to continue to do wicked? What stopped you here at that table and have the nerve to claim things don't exist when none of this makes sense if you are the one saying there's no purpose? I guess I don't understand how a ball of logic can exist in such a free form, it's just floating around. But it speaks of a form, and a logic that should have don't know, some type of egg mixture in it to keep it together. The same person is describing exactly what is inside an eggshell and describing the eggshell itself and describing what it's used for and where it can be applied and how it keeps logic, and how it's the foundation of logic. But it's claiming it came from nowhere. Like this egg, they're giving a new name to it. They're giving their own little titles to different parts of it, but they're claiming it just came from nowhere. It's just that chicken doesn't exist. There's no such thing as an egg, no such thing as egg yolk, no such thing as egg white. That they are the ones who just came up with this, and they're the logic that's holding all the truth together. It's just bizarre because it definitely came from somewhere, and it's not from the heart of man, because a man's heart is evil. There's no way, especially when we have logic being given to us through Christianity, and we are so messed up, we've actually deconstructed it and decided it doesn't work for us anymore. So if you think we're those same people who created goodness, who created, this evolution of whatever place we're at, where we can sit on high and from high places and look down upon history and say we're better than that, it feels very arrogant. That means 10 years from now that we can do the same thing and look back and go, oh, well, we know better now. We're more logical now. But with every 10 years, we become less tolerant of truth, and we hate truth, and we become passionate against it. So there's no way it came from us. There's no way. It had to come from a place outside of us, because when it's given to us, we do what we did to Jesus. We put it on a cross. We crucify it. We can't stand the type of stuff truth will do. Like, it'll heal you, but if not, you're going to crush it, and you're going to keep it moving, and you're going to need people to be very quiet as you go, because you can't accept it, you can't hear it. And that's the reality we live in as a society. And it speaks of this egg mixture, but it says it doesn't exist. That's like weird, because that's kind of what's keeping any form of logic together and truth together, is something that's consistent. Otherwise, well, logic wouldn't be true or real, and truth wouldn't be true or real. So there has to be a plumb line. There has to be a plumb line somewhere. Somebody has to have the truth. You have to have something to measure it against. Otherwise, there's no reason to argue about stuff at tables if there's no legs on the dang table. I don't understand. That's my point here, is I watch these type of debates, and not only do I not kind of grasp what they're talking about, and I think it might be because maybe it's comprehension, but also it feels like people try to stuff so hard into a box, like, oh, I'm going to cram. But that cramming, that concept of this needing to be a biological, says something about you. Why do you need to be biological? Why do you need to remove free will? What is it about free will that bothers you? That's my question. And why does it all matter in the end? If there's no box, and there's no end, and there's no beginning, and there's no God, then why are you wasting your time? I'm not wasting my time, but why are you wasting yours? That's my question. And why is he reading the Bible to find weird things about a time and a culture and a tradition that he doesn't even understand the context of? Like, if God's telling you to do something in a certain order, and you go back, and every time never fails, the God who freed the slaves out of Egypt, that same God, when there's this debate about the Egyptians, and not Egyptians, about slaves and slavery. They love to go to slaves and slavery because that's their favorite. But this is the same God who freed, the Israelites from Egypt. So I guess I'm confused there. The other thing is, if you were to say today, we all have to stop this particular practice that we all love as a country because we're evil, whatever that practice is, there's no way people would just stop. So that's why people like Ben says stuff like, hey, we need to do something political where we bring it down a level. And, instead of saying, not 3 months, we'll bring it down to so many weeks, and then we'll bring it so many weeks down to you got to bring it down over time. Whatever you're fighting, you have to bring it down over time, because you got to get people used to the water, and because we're just that evil. So God's done this too, and as a matter of fact, in the book of Revelation, it speaks of how God will pour out his wrath, and people will be so stubborn that the more God pours out his wrath, the more angry people get, and the worse and harder their hearts become, and they get further and further and further from the potential to repent. further and further and further. The more he crushes them, the worse and more hard they become. And that's in the book of Revelation. So God knows you have to do things small and a little bit over time, because there's just no way these evil beings, that is a human, are ever gonna just, okay, God, sure, because we don't even know how to be, even when God tells us to do that, we don't know how to begin to do that. Like, he'll tell us simply how to be good, and we're like, but that's so hard. I don't even know how to begin to even comprehend what you're telling me. That's how far gone we are. That's how lost we are. We're just on this other horrible, dark place. Well, anyway, I didn't want the video to be dark, but I just wanted the video to address the fact that I don't think all these things have to be just this is true, that's true, this is true. I think that there's many different types of reality and perceptions of reality, and we probably all collectively clump together in a certain way that obviously we all see. We all see the people who are operating on a spiritual level. We all see people who are operating on a primitive level. We all see there's something that's allowing us to decide between the two. That's what I'm saying. This is Linda of Christ is King forever. May God be with you.